Hey, it's Keith. How are you doing? So here we go. This is a report on Vipassana. And so if you're a regular follower of my blog, you know that I went to Vipassana in November 2016 and I left halfway through. And so we'll talk about why. We'll just cut to the chase and just say that I came across the universe delivered some awesome people to me that convinced me to go back to Vipassana in February of this year, where I completed the Vipassana. And I just want to say, Vipassana is the most profound thing you'll ever know. It's not easy. I consider it a top rate in the world of how I look at wellness. And if you're a regular to my blog, this is going to bring in a lot of people because the last one did. I did do a blog on why I left Vipassana halfway through, and it got up to 6,000 hits. I deleted that video because, to tell you the truth, where I'm at right now, I don't even remember why I left, and I don't really care. And that's like sort of the trajectory that I'm on, of just, in a way, it's almost kind of cool. I find that with myself, some of the best, most profound things in my life, I maybe kind of wind up being a little bit repulsed by. And I think my taste in music is definitely like that, of where something isn't great to me and then later on it just becomes a cornerstone of my life. And that is definitely the case with Vipassana. So, and I have a lot of really good things to measure it on too, because it wasn't like it came at my darkest time and this stuff, and we'll get into some stuff here of like some people I ran across while I was there that were there to get rid of demons. Yes. So basically, I want to say that at the time that I completed the Vipassana, meaning this year, and I'm hesitating. You know, you'll find a lot of Vipassana blogs on here of people who are fresh out of Vipassana. I'm 4 months and 10 days away from my completion date. I am completely integrated. I don't have a perfect daily practice yet, that they recommend, which is 2 1-hour sits a day. That's basically 2 1-hour meditations, one earlier in the day, one later in the day. So it took me a little while to integrate that, but I shall backpedal and tell you now why. I'm making the declaration that as somebody that's a spiritual thrill seeker, if you will, that's what I was saying a while ago, just driven to like find out like what is this life all about? What is amazing? What can I do? I'm not really a matrix person, a person that's just, you know, kind of plugged into the society that's kind of numb and kind of people that are like really not conscious and not even aware that they like exist, or thinking about like who is it that's inside my body. It's, you know, I'm not my body. We are not our bodies. Where are you in your body? So this is a little stuff, okay? So, come summer last, I've been telling this story on my blog. I won't go heavily into detail, but just always looking to manifest new things. What's the new sort of thrill of wellness, the new thrill? And by thrill, I don't mean a cheap thrill like a high, but what's the new like lust, the new like thing that I can completely consume to be happier. You know, and I want to say I'm not on here right now. I'm doing a walk, and I am a 55-year-old raw vegan. I've been raw vegan for 33 years and 4 months now, I guess. Something like that. I think it's 34 years and 4 months, maybe. Not really sure. It's over 30 years. And I've had a spiritual life all my life. I was incredibly clairvoyant. when I was little. I didn't know that till much later. My parents, I was adopted into a family. My parents are incredibly like working class, normal people. And when I say my parents, I'm talking about the people that raised me, not my biological family, which I know nothing about. Super hardcore lucid dreamer. My parents were really confused when I remember these sessions of where I would just have these, crazy dreams and feeling like there was stuff outside my room and just super, super, super clairvoyant. Well, that was chased out of me by the time I went to school, and that's kind of the end of that story. So much later, as I was getting into I entered into vegetarianism, age 13, which would be 1970s, age 14, 1977. And then my mom kind of supported that, and because she was concerned about it, so she took me to health food stores and stuff like that. And I come from a somewhat normal middle class family from the 70s, which that was for the most part privileged. Where I came from, there wasn't really any poverty. Everybody was kind of middle class. And and so I just, she took me to health food stores. I got whatever I wanted. And so, and I just continued with that curiosity and spiritual elements coming in the sense of that I liked a lot of spiritual music. The front of that would be the band Yes from the 70s. They still exist, but their music that I consumed the most was from the 70s, which was highly spiritual, highly channeled, and that was my guidelines. And then also from the record that they had that was called Tales from Topographic Oceans, when a kid is 14, 15 and he's completely in love with something to do with music or some kind of hero or something, which the members of Yes were my heroes, and definitely was especially the singer who wrote all the music and was the sort of conceptual captain of the band. And so they had a record called Tales from Topographic Oceans, which I believe came out in 1973. And it was based on a book, famous spiritual book called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Definitely one of the main books that a lot of sort of post-hippies were reading. And by that I mean once the sort of psychedelic drug taking was still going on, but it wasn't just such a frenzy. And so I definitely remembered seeing that book when I was a kid, because I was the youngest in my family of cousins, and I remembered seeing that book around. And so when I read about the book in the liner notes of Tales from Topographic Oceans, I didn't know what it was. And then I went to spiritual bookstores and I found the book. And I found that classic old, like, orange paperback version. I was like, oh, that book. Wow. And so it was just like a kind of a deja vu or a connection with my future self finding my old self. Right. And so I'm just telling you all of that so that I've always been like a kind of a spiritual thrill seeker. Nothing really came on, or I've just always been spiritual on some level, even at my worst. And so then I started working for my father, and started making a lot of money working in the construction industry. Able to do my own thing. I really didn't get like consumed with the machismo that was there, because I could do my own thing because I was the boss's son. I was pretty much making about $500-600 right a week right out the door, which was a lot of money in 1983 when all this was happening at this point. And that is roughly, and so I just went to health food stores and just, I lived in a loft space with all my synthesizers. I'm an electronic musician, by the way, to any like people that are seeking this out. And I just lived in a loft where I paid like $210 for this like attic space where I lived with all my synthesizers, living my bohemian life, and pretty much spending my whole entire paycheck on health food and health food books, wellness books, spiritual books, buying synthesizers and buying records, and that's it. And I just lived this bohemian life, the same as I do now, which is, you know, being into wellness, being in health food, being vegan, making music, and leading a extreme spiritual life from a not a monk in a cave point of view, from being like kind of an urban monk, if you will. So by the time I was 22, which was 1985, discovered a book called Survival in the 21st Century, which was all about raw veganism. So then, that's all the story I need to tell you. So just went through my whole thing of like getting into relationships and stuff like that, and you know, kind of having my worst, and not really being a crazy sexual person like most boys are in their late teens, early 20s. I saved that for my 30s. And so that was perhaps the point in my life where I was maybe the furthest away from who I was, my young self, and myself nowadays. And so, but always interested in, you know, spiritual stuff, new age stuff, evolution, total wellness. And by total wellness, I mean from physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. The four aspects at which we live life. Yes. And so did all kinds of stuff, and did everything, wound up like meeting lots of cool people, learning a lot about everything. In 2010, meeting some really cool people through the internet, namely this guy, Truth Calkins, who taught me a lot about, or inspired me, and I sort of wound up teaching myself a lot about traditional Chinese medicine and just becoming more aware of like other systems of wellness, and how in other systems that were not Western, there was integratedness of spirituality and nutrition and the food that you eat and the life that you live, because, you know, I was kind of around it growing up in California, Southern California specifically, and so but that was everything I knew, was just this sort of post, you know, and I was around hippies a lot, and around surfing culture, around beach culture, and attracted to vegetarianism because I was a vegetarianism. So I was around all kinds of cool stuff early on. So I just continued on with my life doing this, and then with I had a second phase of getting really into Survival in the 21st Century, the book that I talked to you about earlier. And hey, this has a point, so you know I'm straying way off the Vipassana point. This is coming back to Vipassana, okay? Trust me. So in the early 90s, I had a resurgence in being into Survival in the 21st Century, which was a book all about longevity, talked about immortality, stuff like that. And I was in a relationship, a gay relationship, as society would call me that. I don't really consider myself that, quite honestly. I'm kind of nothing. I'm not bisexual. None of that defines me. At least that's where I stand now. But I've only had relationships with males, and just because that was simply easier. But I was in midway through a relationship that was really crappy, and I would just started immersing myself into a hermit lifestyle, which I'd always been comfortable doing. And so I reinvestigated Survival in the 21st Century. I think this is actually more like right at the 90s, and just went crazy, like raw. Like I was already raw vegan all the time, but I went crazy into it, like sproutarian, sprouts, you know, old school raw as defined by, you know, like I said, that book and the work of Ann Wigmore and all of that kind of stuff, of just really off-grid kind of vegan. And the book, like I said, talked about immortality, talked about a lot of spirituality and stuff like that, and breatharianism. That's a big thing that's going on with me now. I've always been intrigued by those like bigger than life kind of things. So I got into my late 30s. I wasn't really aging. I spent a lot of time in the sun. My video that's like maybe a couple before this one or right before this one, it's called I Just Turned 55. And I don't think I look young, but I am definitely ageless. So when I was in my late 30s, was not aging, and and I just wanted to get, I don't think there was even a want anymore at that point. It was really making decisions about like that were happening automatically about me, getting into things that were like healthy, and seeking alternative stuff, and whatever. And so especially in 2010, I got into some crazy shit with Truth Calkins, Chinese medicine, lots of protocols, about who's also a person that's still to this day really into like immortality and like really out there stuff. So then a friend tells me about Vipassana, and I was just like considering myself like, a spiritual hipster. And I just felt like I knew everything, and the fact that something existed that was for free. Vipassana is for free. They go, and it's only supported by donations from people that actually complete the program. And so where I stand now is, after having completed it and integrated it into my life and being obsessed with it, I consider it kind of not even spiritual. I consider it to be like essential, like just the same as keeping your body in shape, to have a great life, to have a good relationship with your body, to have a great relationship with your mind, which is the death of a lot of people, to have a great relationship with your life as being a human, which humans are emotional. Humans want to be happy. That's a part of a very, especially now this day and age, of where we're kind of removed from the need to survive. Like there's more than ever, and this is like the big conflict. And as a 55-year-old, I wanted to very much like draw a line in the sand with most people that are my age, that have their issues with millennials and with younger people. I totally see millennials and young people as just the necessary consciousness that's needed for the earth at this time. So that's where I'm coming from. If you don't like that, then you can either listen to the rest of the video or turn it off now, because where I'm going with now is all like the ideas that everything is perfect, everything is always perfect, and the sooner that you can connect in with that, of getting to where you're understanding that you're a soul in a human body, or a soul in a physical body having a human experience, and that humans want to feel good. And so that's when the mental thing starts going crazy, is when they don't feel good and they don't understand, and they're acting from programming with society and stuff like that. And so Vipassana is the complete remedy for all of that. Like where I'm walking right now, this is a mountain community that has been riddled with heroin addiction in young people for like going on close to 10 years now, really bad for 8 years. And so there's obviously a reason why people go to heroin, is because they don't feel right inside themselves. And I think heroin's like a kind of thing that just makes you readily feel good. I just want to say that to me, Vipassana is like a really healthy, awesome, tonifying, like drug kind of. Like you all of a sudden you become something else, and the world just becomes perfect. And this isn't doing Vipassana of going and doing a 10-day silent retreat, and going there and then just going back to your life. This is about doing what S.N. Goenka, that's the Vipassana that I'm involved with is the centers that this gentleman called S.N. Goenka, a Burmese man who was a businessman. I'll give you a little backstory really quick. He was a businessman, wound up becoming plagued by the worst kind of headaches you could get, which I think is probably a cluster headache. He remedied that with doctors giving him morphine injections every other week. And they said eventually that you'll become a complete morphine addict and you'll have to do it every single day. So a friend helped him to go to a monastery in Burma and said that it was psychosomatic. And he went through the Vipassana thing, integrated into his life what they recommended because he had to. And well, it was the only way out, really, of just living a life of which was not in his function of being a morphine addict, which maybe other people would have chosen being the morphine addict, or maybe killing themselves or something, which some people do wind up doing or becoming really bad. I did know a guy that had cluster headaches that I worked with in the construction industry. So him being a businessman and all of a sudden having this new love for the planet and for all human beings and all life and everything, as you do when you become a Vipassana, an integrated Vipassana person. And I definitely want to make that distinction because there's a lot of people that are kind of out there doing like Vipassana and ayahuasca side by side that are just kind of like doing it as like hipsters. I don't have a problem with that word hipster, but I just mean like, you know, like they go through the Vipassana program and do it and have a great feeling from it, and then they just go right back to, you know, smoking weed and, you know, not integrating it. But the trick is the integration, when all of a sudden the whole world becomes really new. And it's not easy. So I guess at this point, I definitely need to start talking about my friends that helped me get integrated into it. So I went there with just the attitude of that I wanted to complete it. So a person in my yoga sangha was like, dude, you have to go back there and finish that. Like, you know, because there's nothing else like it in the world. And myself just being like I said, a bit of a spiritual thrill seeker, a bit of a person that likes to be legitimate. I knew I needed to finish the program. So I went there and I got through it. I wound up having lots of lucid dreams when I was there. Lots of magical stuff there. Connected in with, I'm not going to talk about my post experiences. This is just going to be like a video that's like, hey, Vipassana's the shit. And so that was this one guy, Johnny, in my sangha, who's like 20-year like Buddhist guy that's like just has a serious practice. He's a real interesting conundrum of energies. He's like very heavily tattoo artist, and he has like this kind of total like monk life. Totally cool. Like I love that shit. And so who would help me would be like two other guys that are twins in my yoga sangha, and they are just turned 26, and they have like 6 or 7 Vipassanas under their belt. They're like philosophy majors at a local university, UCR, University of California, Riverside. And yeah, we just started hanging out based on them being interested in me because I completed it. And then we just started hanging out, and they're like, their whole life was like, okay, well, let's sit. And I was like, I came back and like, shit, that was like the last thing I wanted to do was more meditation. Like, I have meditation in my life is important to me, but like just dropping right back into the hardcore 1-hour meditations. And so the first time they came to my house, we were like doing stuff, and they were like, well, let's sit. And I hadn't done a 1-hour sit since I got back from Vipassana, which was only the week before, actually. A week after they'd come to my house. And then I was just around them and just like seeing how they are and seeing how I really wanted to be different in society, and having some like not like a support group, but like a sangha kind of thing, a family, a people of like-minded ideas to to operate from. And like I said, I don't see the Dhamma life, that's Vipassana, Dhamma, Buddhist principles. I don't really see it as a spiritual practice. I see it as just a normal like thing that every person should do, of being like that. And so the fact that I had very similar lives to them, and when I say them, I'm talking about John and Dan, the twins in my Sangha. And that's a little different from Johnny, because his thing was he was had a background of being like a drug addict, and I'm not really sure what his history is, but it's definitely a lot different from him, because he grew up in poverty. And there was myself being intuitive. I mean, he was the one that got me to go back, so amazing guy. But with the twins, my life was practically identical to them, of where I'd been, where they were up to that point. And so there was just a heavy resonance, and it was like the universe like designed it all to happen. And I'm into it. I love it. It's like, it's not for everybody. Everybody should, in my opinion, like, do it. I could talk about some other stuff, but like, I'm going back in September. I'm really into it. I'm going back to do another silent retreat. My friends John and Dan, they're at the Massachusetts Vipassana Center right now, doing a 20-day. Well, John actually just finished a 10-day course that he sat. And then Dan's girlfriend, Alina, she's sitting a 20-day course, and they're serving it, meaning that they're working in the kitchen, providing food for these people that are meditating. And so I'm actually planning to serve a Vipassana in November at the 29 Palms Vipassana Center. And I'm into it. Like all the ways of service that you could do, I've always felt like I more wanted to like be of service to people that were to help them become more higher consciousness, not to just like sort of be a kind of person that I do help the homeless. I give homeless money all the time and stuff like that, but just the normal sort of being of service, I'm more into like supporting this and making this a strong thing in society. And it is a strong thing. There's centers all over the world. There's like, I don't know, 15 or 20 of them in the US, and another God knows how many, like a number like probably in the hundreds all over the world. It's an amazing thing. I highly recommend it, and I'm into it. And it's going to become a major part of it is a major part of my life now. It's going to become, in 2 or 3 years' time, like I'm already making plans to be a Vipassana traveler, of going to other places and doing Vipassana sits. Like I was planning, like when I found out there was one in Hawaii, I was going to do that next summer, go to Hawaii and do a Vipassana 10-day there. And sadly, with this explosion of the volcano on my birthday, the place got covered with lava. So that's that. But anyways, hey, so it's Keith. It's a long almost half hour video. I'm just telling you that I love Vipassana. Vipassana is like the whole deal, man. It's like the ultimate nutrition for you to get yourself right. Everything should follow after that. So just want to tell you, support me by supporting my music. Links in the drop down to my Bandcamp page. You can buy CDs from me. That's kind of like what I'm all about. You heard what I talked about in here. Just living a life of service. My music is of service too. It's a really special kind of music that's to heal. Kind of psychedelic, kind of magical. You listen to it and just sink yourself in, and things happen. So, all right, man, it's Keith. Over and out. Peace. I love you. Bye.